brother have assassinated.
العراقية وتقسيمها إلى محافظ.
Iran was a sitting duck.
Storm.
Constitute an axis of evil.
Where Iraq is today is where it all began, ancient Mesopotamia, known as the cradle of civilization.
This is the place of the rise of the first cities, the place of the first use of agriculture, of domesticated animals. From here we have the first laws, the invention of writing, the invention of monumental arts and architecture, first originated in Mesopotamia.
The world's oldest civilization beginning as early as 6,000 years ago. Iraq is also a biblical land. It has been said the Garden of Eden, the birthplace of Abraham, the Tower of Babel, and the Hanging Gardens were all here. And Iraq's ancient rulers influence politics even to this day.
Saddam Hussein has certainly drawn a parallel between himself and some ancient monarchs of Mesopotamia. For example, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon.
To some extent that's to do with giving Iraq an identity in history, saying we have always been here. But one can't help also feeling that with Saddam Hussein, he also admires their power. He admires their tyranny, their ruthlessness, the extent of their power.
After World War I, the British defeat the Ottoman Empire, carving up Arabia with arbitrary lines in the sand that still stand today.
When the mood changes, the map could be redrawn and Iraq can disappear. They've seen a rather ambitious and grandiose Saddam Hussein, but they didn't realize that much of this comes out of a deep, troubling feeling of insecurity.
The British appoint King Faisal I as head of the Iraqi kingdom, but Iraq doesn't become an independent state until 11 years later. The ruling family clings to power until 1958, when Iraq's military slaughters the family in their palace, putting an end to the monarchy and establishing the Iraqi Republic.
The murderers and rebels have assassinated my brother and childhood friend, His Majesty King Faisal.
From the turmoil emerges the Ba'ath Party in 1968, with Saddam Hussein as its rising star.
Well, the Ba'athists, like many other political parties in Iraq, realized that the route to power was through the army. The Ba'ath came to power by a military coup d'etat.
In 1979, Saddam Hussein becomes president of Iraq, a country that is deeply divided. In the north, the Kurds, who have been fighting for their independence. In the south, the Shiite Muslims. In the center, the Sunni Muslims. Shiites and Sunnis have a long history of religious and political conflict. Saddam Hussein is Sunni, even though the majority of his country, about 65%, is Shiite. Soon after he assumes power, Saddam accuses top officials of being traitors. Some who were his close friends for years, and executes them. Saddam's power intensifies with the oil boom of the 70s. September 4th, 1980, the first shots are fired in the Iran-Iraq War, a bloody conflict that would last 8 years.
Saddam Hussein invaded Iran in 1980 largely because he believed that Iran was a sitting duck, that only a few months before it had alienated its chief military supplier, the United States, by seizing the American embassy in Tehran.
In the hands of Muslim students tonight.
With 52 American embassy workers taken hostage in Iran on November 4th, suddenly Iraq looks a lot more attractive to the United States.
America was fighting on Iraq's side, destroying the Iranian Navy in the Gulf, for instance, and giving Iraq enormous amounts of not only material and financial support, but intelligence.
It's hard to believe the United States supported Iraq back then, a country we now so passionately oppose. That's today's Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld meeting with Saddam Hussein in 1983, when he was an envoy to the Mideast. Saddam launches chemical weapons against Iranian troops. By August 20th, 1988, there is a ceasefire. Saddam is accused of not only gassing the Iranians, but his own people, the Iraqi Kurds.
In 1988, when they started to reassert their control of Kurdistan, which had gone out of their control, was to use the same tactics against the Kurds, very effectively, very ruthlessly.
His use of weapons of mass destruction proved successful. Saddam sets out to develop more. Iraq invades Kuwait in the summer of 1990. After a 5-month military buildup and a massive diplomatic effort, the U.S. coalition launches a war against Iraq. Kuwait is liberated a month later. But Saddam claims victory, saying he stood up against the Americans and survived. Under the peace agreement, United Nations inspectors are to be allowed to search for and destroy Iraq's weapons of mass destruction. During the 7-year mission, they destroy some, but not all, of Iraq's arsenal. In 1998, Iraq kicks them out. The inspectors are finally allowed back in 2002. For years, Iraq is accused of playing cat and mouse with inspectors, allegedly hiding evidence. So today, the United States is once again at war with Iraq, while some question whether war is the best solution.
You may be able to disarm Iraq, you may be able to search out every last drop of chemical and biological weapons and so on, but you're left effectively with responsibility for reconstructing an Iraq that has suffered 30 years of dictatorship, 12 years of sanctions, 2 decades of war. This is not going to be an easy task.